Hey guys, it's Jake from Metal Wani, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have the amazing voice behind the band TesseracT. We have Daniel Tompkins. Dan, how are you going, man?
Very well, thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure to speak to you today.
Yeah, thank you. And we're here to talk about your upcoming album, Sonder, which you've got coming out April 20th, so not that long now. How excited is the band to be releasing this album after the successful global tours that it had done in support of Polaris, your last album?
Yeah, I think excited is the wrong word to use. I wouldn't necessarily say we're excited. We're not apprehensive. I'd say we're quite relaxed and comfortable about the whole process now. We've released quite a few albums as individuals and as a band, as a collective, so I mean, we kind of know what to expect, which sounds a bit a bit negative. But no, I think the album will be received fairly well, to be honest. I think there's always going to be a small percentage that are going to voice the dislike, the ones that like to jump on social media at the first moment. But like with every album we've had, I feel like it's going to take time to grow on people, and you know, that will be reflected in the comments that you might see in a few months' time down the line. That being said, I'm aware that the first two singles we've put out have been received very well. That's always nice and reassuring. Kind of gives us motivation and faith to keep going. But I think one aspect we are excited about, more so than releasing the record, is actually just preparing our live show. We always get excited about that because it's where we feel we shine the most, I guess. We're very aware that we translate well live, and we have a great live sound due to our amazing front of house engineer, who always delivers the goods. So yeah, it's nice to think that we're going to be, you know, adding some really cool new songs into the mix for the live show. Kind of looking forward to seeing how they go down live as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you actually mentioned that you like the negative comments and that might get thrown around, and I guess that's one of the benefits but also pitfalls for being a band that sort of melds so many genres together, is that you're always going to have your supporters and detractors from either side of the spectrum, people wishing you went all in on one sort of genre, and people that sort of want you to stay the way that you are, which is, it's a good thing for the band, I think.
I agree with you. Yeah. I'm quite approachable in terms of how I work within social media, and even from a business perspective as a vocal coach as well. I'm a very reachable artist, which I feel kind of breaks the mold from a lot of other artists out there. What I'm trying to get at here is that I have done some research in the past, and I like to put the feelers out and get a gauge of what's going on, what people love and what they dislike. I feel that's an important process for an artist to kind of really get into that and know what people are saying. I think if any artist out there says that they don't, you know, jump on social media from time to time and see what people are saying, they're probably lying, because it's part of growing as an artist and knowing how to kind of move and evolve your music in the right way to a degree. Yeah. We seem to have a fan base for each album, which is quite odd, and that is definitely born from the fact that every album can't be pinned down to a particular genre. And if you listen to the first album, One, very abrasive, very harsh, very heavy, obviously with lots of ethereal moments, but Altered State kind of was the next step in that evolution, where it became very ethereal and very conceptual. Polaris was again very different, not just from a sonic perspective, but from a song structure perspective, whereas every song on the album was separate. There was no real concept, so we wanted to do something different in that respect, and obviously it was a lot more accessible, a lot more arguably there was more melody and more approachable song structures, which was, you know, something that we wanted to experiment with. This time around, I feel like it's definitely a further evolution, but also we've tried to capture moments from each album. not necessarily to appease anybody, but just to kind of see how that would change the dynamics of the way that we wrote music, and hopefully it would inspire a new angle. And I think we're heading in that direction. I feel quite happy with the album. I don't feel like it's Tesseract's best moment. I feel like the best is yet to come. We are, you know, I fully appreciate that. Even though I've been on 3 albums, this is the first time TesseracT has had 2 consecutive albums with the same singer, so I know that we've been quite disrupted in the past in terms of lineup. But we feel very secure now, we feel very strong together. We've definitely got a long-term plan, and it's exciting to think where the music might go next. And I'm already talking about the next album, so I mean that should be an indication as to how forward-thinking we are as a band. You know, we're always excited to keep it fresh.
Yeah, and look, what you've just said there has actually knocked off a couple of the questions that I had. So I did sort of go in and ask, was going to ask that Sonder sort of feels like it's everyone seems really in sync, which you've just mentioned, like you've got that forward plan, so that's great. But also I thought it was really interesting that you touched on that you've sort of gone back and taken each of the moments from those earlier albums, and this album seems like a really great coming together of, I guess, all 3 of those albums, but the way that the band is moving forward, and it's great. Was that a conscious choice for the bands to go back and have a look at the earlier work and have a look at what happened and what worked really well, or did that progression of sound just happen naturally?
I think it came from a number of different areas. Firstly, I just have to say that I absolutely adore writing music with Ackle. I think as a songwriter, you may come across other people in life that you really gel with, and I really gel with Ackle. And so we often talk about how we potentially want to, you know, mould the sound or change it. And I have to say that I was maybe an instigator in bringing some heaviness back into the band, and Ackle agreed with that as well. In terms of the varied new sounds on the album, Aidan is to be thanked for that. Aidan is our front of house engineer, but also a second producer. In all honesty, he did something really amazing, which was reach out to people all over the world and ask them to send in field recordings of absolutely anything. And he ended up collating a whole library of amazing sounds, which he essentially created samples out of. You know, he molded them together, stretched them, made them into synth lines, if you like. Very creative process, and that was an evolution from Arai as well. And Aidan's had involvement in Altered State, had involvement in Polaris as well. This time in Sonder, we brought him in a bit more heavily. So I mean, it's been a real cohesive effort. In the past, it's just been Ackle and the vocalist, or me. We've been wanting to do this for a long time, bring everybody into the writing process, but the problem with TesseracT is that we're all so widespread. It's very rare that we get together in the same room, so the way that we write is very much about, you know, file sharing and essentially making a jigsaw of sound. It's a big sonic jigsaw. That's how we write music, and it can take a long time doing it that way. We're getting closer and closer to being able to just take time off and be together in the studio and just write and see what happens. The last time that kind of happened was when the band wrote Hexes, because Ackle and Ackle were in the same room actually jamming together when they wrote a lot of that song. And for me, that is probably one of the most exciting songs we've written in a long time. So yeah, it's a changing process. But I think, I still think we have a lot more to offer, and I think that will come with working together more, and in the same way that we've become more. Sorry, I keep coughing.
No, you're right.
In the same way we've become more cohesive in the way that we write. We are now beginning to all understand concepts and lyrics a lot better from the first moment. So even when a seed is born in terms of a musical idea, I will try and give it some kind of meaning or a concept. And with a lot of these ideas, I would write an explication before the lyrics and send them around so that everybody was on the same page, everybody understood what the concept was about. Yeah. And everyone's had an opportunity to chip in with that. So whereas the writing's been the lyrical writing's been quite exclusive in the past, it's now a joint effort. I wouldn't say that no one's really contributed that heavily this time, but at least everyone's had an opportunity to kind of, if someone has a nice lyric in their mind and they want to present it to me, then I'm more than welcome for that. And also in terms of writing concepts, I've been quite open to suggestions, and I just think we've spent a lot of time just talking about ideas and developing concepts together, and it's really made a huge difference. Like right away, the amount of people that are connecting to the concept of the album and really enjoying the lyrics is notable. I've definitely felt that. So yeah, it's been a very exciting process. I'm sorry, I'm kind of waffling on a little bit now. I have a tendency to do that, by the way.
No, look, that's perfect, because you've actually provided a really good segue into the next question I was going to ask, which is talking about the lyrics of the album. And this one sort of tackles some pretty harrowing concepts, like focusing on our overall insignificance in the greater scope of the world. So that's obviously something that can fit in quite well with your music, but why was that the direction that you guys decided to focus on for this album?
I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, I came across this beautiful picture on Twitter, believe it or not, with a description of the word Sonder. And as soon as I read it, I instantly connected to it. It was one of those ineffable emotions that we experience in life but can't quite describe. And it was shared amongst peers and amongst friends, and everyone had the same reaction. This kind of feeling that when let's just say you're walking through a crowd of people, you suddenly have the revelation that the people around you are living really complex and vivid lives, equally as much as your own. And I kind of felt that initially it left me feeling two ways. Firstly, quite insignificant in the fact that it made me feel less important, because obviously we're all quite selfish individuals. We live in our own mind, in our own bodies, and we make decisions to better ourselves every single day. And we're quite selfish in that respect. So I think that does quite make feel that does make me feel quite insignificant. But on the other hand, it can make you feel quite empowered, because I believe that if you look at things in the world from the very minute to the very large, me and Moss talk about this all the time, but there's a reflection there, from microorganisms to insects to animals to humans to environments to countries to the world to planets to the galaxies to the universe. It just goes on and on and on and on, and the further you go out, the more insignificant you do become. But at the same time, that can make you feel very special, because it makes you realise how incredible it is to actually have a consciousness, to even exist, to even have a life. And I feel like we're becoming so narrow-minded these days. Not everybody, of course, not everybody, but there's a real sense of apathy that is developing, and people are becoming so locked away and tunnel-visioned with technology that we're definitely becoming more disconnected from each other in a lot of ways. That's quite ironic to say that we're more connected in terms of technology, but from a community, from a personal and a social perspective, I think we are becoming more disconnected. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going on a little bit now, and it's a wormhole. Yeah, it really is a wormhole. So we did want to tackle a lot of these issues, but be quite brief. And I really felt that Sonder was the perfect way of describing the concept of the album, really.
Yeah, nice. So I do want to talk.
And just I really have to expand on that as well, because I have to explain where the word comes from. It's very important I do that. Now, there's a man called John Koenig, who is he is really at the forefront of linguistic progression. It's essentially neologism, which is creation of words, and he is very beautifully putting together a book. I mean, I'm eagerly waiting for this to come out, but it's all to do with creating words for emotions that we can't describe. And at the minute he has a website which is the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and that is where the word actually comes from. It's a coined word by him, and he has a whole host of these words, and he's put some beautiful videos together to explain them, and they're very emotive. And I just find it, I think it's amazing to be, you know, to be creating words, and then to kind of see them spread throughout the world, because people around the world are using his coined words and becoming very, very popular. I wouldn't necessarily say it was tempting to take on more of his words. You know, that would be the obvious train of thought, is taking a word and making a song based around each one, but that really would be plagiarism in my eyes. And that's why I do have to kind of put a disclaimer out there and say, look, this is where the word comes from. It's a beautiful word, and I felt it would be a very appropriate way of describing the album.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. So I've got one more quick one for you, Dan, before we sign off for today. But with the release of Sonder, you guys are bound to start touring again pretty heavily. You've already got the North American tour coming up following the release of the album, and you've just announced an Australian tour for September. So how excited are you to finally be touring around, and what are the rest of the plans for the band to see the year out?
Yeah, it really is exciting to get back on the road, for sure. We're about to start another worldwide campaign, so in some ways I'm quite apprehensive to be away from home for so long, but in other ways I'm so excited to be playing these songs to new people, and to, you know, just to keep growing the band, because it's a fantastic thing to be doing. We're very lucky. Yeah, it's great to be coming back to Australia. I really want to take some time out and hit the beach at some point. You know, we've been over so many times, but we've never been to the beach and had a great day out, so fingers crossed we get to do that this time. And yeah, our Australian fan base is absolutely next level. We always have such a great time, and we have sold out shows. Yeah, I'm really excited to get back. In terms of other plans, a few different territories we haven't visited as a unit are Japan, parts of China. I definitely want to get into more parts of Asia, for sure. Whether that happens or not, who knows, but even if it doesn't, we're going to have a very busy few years, for sure.
Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you when you come down here later on in the year.
No problem, it's been great speaking to you.